Hey team, and welcome into another episode of Toe the Line, episode 7 this morning. Very exciting. As I'm recording right now, my podcast episode with Ian Jones will be live, so if you haven't listened to that one, make sure you go give it a listen. Let me know what you think in the ratings and the comments, and in the reviews and stuff. It was just such an exciting episode to record, and I'm so grateful that I was able to have that first kind of interview on my platform, and that it was Ian Jones, and he's such a legend. He's such not just because he's an All Black, but he's just such a genuine and lovely and nice and kind person, and his insights into being an All Black and throughout his life and what he's gone through and how he got to where he was, and being able to wear the black jersey was just such a cool chat. So I'm really grateful that I got to do that, and the response I'm getting from you guys already is super cool, and just super grateful that you guys are all loving it. So that's exciting. But on today's agenda, we are talking about a couple of different things. Obviously, Rugby World Cup is still happening. Last round of pool play happened. Bathurst 1000 happened. Oh my gosh, it was a great 6 hours. My eyes were pretty sore after spending all that time watching the TV. But epic race. Really excited to get into that one. We're going to be talking about the Ranfurly Shield, which has been in the headlines a lot, and then obviously we're going to be previewing the quarterfinals. But before we get into all of that, how are you? I hope you've had an amazing week. I hope you're taking care of yourself. I hope you're being kind to yourself and being kind to one another. And I can't believe that this is my 7th episode already. It's kind of crazy, but without further ado, let's jump into the question of the week. My question of the week this week was, What do the All Blacks need to do to beat Ireland in the quarterfinals? So if you don't know, the All Blacks will be versing Ireland in the quarterfinals this coming weekend, and I think it's going to be a massive game. I'm really excited. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm just so excited. But anyway, here are some of the responses that I got. So first response for what do the All Blacks need to do in order to beat Ireland in the quarterfinals is main target is Johnny Sexton. Need to be disciplined, play our game, don't matter who Fozzie puts out there, we got to back our team. I think it would be dumb to not target Johnny Sexton in this upcoming game. I think people like to laugh and take the piss out of the fact that he's quite old, but I really don't think age matters in this circumstance, let alone any circumstance, because he is still playing such good rugby. I don't think you guys understand how I admire him so much for his ability to play such good rugby. He's obviously an epic player, but I think you'll definitely want to target him, but then again, there are so many other good players, like for example, Dundee Aki. I think he has been, not just for the Irish team, but I think in general over this Rugby World Cup, I think he has been such a star player. I don't know, I just think he's such a good player. And then obviously you got James Lowe as well, and then I'm just naming all the New Zealand players because I think they're all great, and it's such a shame that we weren't able to keep them here in New Zealand because they are such good players. But I think the Irish team in general, like I said last week, just have the X factor at the moment, and I think it's going to be a tough game for the All Blacks. But moving on to the next answer for what do the All Blacks need to do in order to beat Ireland in the quarterfinals, we have forward. That sounded so southern of me. Forwards need to turn up. Not much else to say about that. Someone commented turn up, so I'm not sure whether they mean turn up as in turn up to the game and then we'll automatically win, which I do not think will happen, or they mean turn up as in turn up to play well, if that makes sense. I don't know. Anyway, I just thought it was funny, so I had to add that in. Next response I got for what do the All Blacks need to do in order to beat Ireland in the quarterfinals, I got stop conceding silly penalties, hold on to the ball. To which I replied to her, and she's come back with, yep, agree. Well, they're super interesting to see them play under pressure because I don't have much confidence in us if we are put under a lot of pressure, which is a super interesting take because I think in that French game for the opening game of the World Cup, we were put under a lot of pressure. And obviously, we didn't win that one, but also in that, I always come back to that walnut game, that Twickenham against South Africa, because I think that was a really good testament to what happens with this current All Blacks side when they are put under pressure and we don't play well. And so I'm a little bit nervous. Do I think we've found our feet in this competition? 100%. But I'm a little bit nervous about, just about what will happen if we put under pressure. I don't know. I think we've kind of come into our own in this tournament, so I think we should be okay and we'll be able to adapt, but you just never know until the game is played. Next answer I have for what do the All Blacks need to do in order to beat Ireland in the quarterfinals, we have dominate in the forwards and in defence. To which I replied, yep, do you think we can win if we aren't able to play our own game? Like I was mentioning earlier, that's something that I am mildly on the rocks and concerned about. And they've replied saying, no, we won't win if Ireland won't allow us to play the running game. We can't simply rely on a game plan that requires us to play force back. If we are to win, we need our forward pack to be ruthless and dominant. Yeah, it's, I don't know, I'm on edge, if you can't tell, about this game coming up against Ireland. I just think it is, if we're able to play our own game and run them around the field, then I think we will be good. I think it will be a really good game. But I think teams like Ireland have researched our game plan enough to know that if they can slow the game down and disallow us to play our own game and not have possession of the ball and not be able to get territory and all that sort of stuff, I just don't see us winning. But on the flip side of that, if we are able to control and dominate the game and play the running game, which is quite obviously, in my opinion, what the kind of All Blacks game plan is up until this point anyway, I think we'll have a good shot at winning. But yeah, I just don't. I've had a number of conversations with a number of people and we're kind of all on the same wavelength when it comes to the running game, and we're not sure if Fozzie has kind of given any thought to any other game plan, which sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud, but we just haven't seen much of any other game plan, if that makes sense. And yeah, I don't know, it's just an interesting one. Anyway, we've got a couple of more for the question of the week. Next one is, I'm afraid if Fozzie puts Beauden Barrett at fullback, we're going to be seeing a lot of force back there, therefore Ireland are going to catch on. Yeah, like I said, I've mentioned it a couple of times now. You just like to hope and pray and think that Fozzie knows what he's doing with this game plan, and hopefully they've got a backup game plan, which I'm sure they do, but you just never know because we haven't really seen much of it. But that was question of the week. I want to talk about a kind of big headline that's been kind of going around in the rugby space here in New Zealand, and potentially maybe overseas as well, but I want to talk about the Ranfurly Shield. For those of you who don't know, the Ranfurly Shield is this big log of wood that goes around the NPC teams, and they can be challenged for it. So the team in question at the moment is the Hawke's Bay Magpies, and the Hawke's Bay Magpies are a team in the Bunnings Mitre 10 Cup. It's not called Mitre 10 Cup, that's always what I refer to it as, but it's kind of like the NPC game. So for those of you who aren't kind of familiar with New Zealand rugby levels, NPC is the stage below Super Rugby, so it's more like provincial rugby rather than franchise, as in like Blues, Chiefs, all that sort of stuff. So the Ranfurly Shield is a shield that if you I believe it has to be challenged at least 7 times throughout the season, and I think that regenerates every time a new team gets a hold of it. So the Hawke's Bay Magpies got this log of wood, as they call it, or the Ranfurly Shield, and what kind of essentially happened is it looks like they've said that, quote unquote, someone dropped it on the cement pavement and it broke. Bearing in mind, this is a really prestigious piece of wood. It's like it's a shield, and it's prestigious, and it goes back years and years, and people have so much respect, and you should have so much respect for this shield, and they've dropped it. And there was also seen to be some white powder in in suspicious looking lines on the shield as well. And I have my thoughts on what happened, but essentially I just wanted to talk about it because it is quite a big talking subject at the moment here in New Zealand. And Brad Wigger, who's the captain of the Magpies and their head coach, held a press conference saying that they didn't know what happened because they weren't there, which I think is interesting. But no one is really kind of... I think I want to, if you watch the breakdown, John Kerwin and Nils Noliaina and Jeff Wilson were all asked about the shield and what they thought of it, and John Kerwin and Jeff Wilson kind of got quite, I'd say, like, relatively fired up about it. Nils, he didn't really get too fired up about it. I just don't think it's in his personality to do that. But they kind of, Jeff and John were both saying that they don't like that people are lying about what happened, because it's obviously what has come out in the media is obviously not what has gone on behind the scenes. And I just think it's really interesting what happened. And I'll put some clips on the screen, or if you follow me on Instagram or TikTok, I'll chuck some stuff up about it as well. But yeah, I just thought it was an interesting kind of thing to talk about. But I also know that in relation to the kind of incident, there was also a player from the Hawke's Bay Magpies that was caught drink driving and is now in the court system as well. So I thought that was an interesting take as well. That at the end of the day, I was talking to my dad about it actually, and I said to him, I was like, I find it interesting that, you know, you've got these professional rugby players who are going into like the pointy end of their season, as in like playoffs, like quarter-finals, semi-finals, and here they are like partying and getting drunk and potentially doing drugs. Like, that's never confirmed. That hasn't been like confirmed or denied. But I just think it's interesting that these quote-unquote professional sporting people are getting drunk off their face at the pointy end of their season. I think in terms of drinking within the rugby kind of space, I think it's relatively normal. I think it just comes with the territory. But I don't know, I just think it's an interesting kind of scene. And my dad kind of said that, you know, NPC isn't really professional level footy and all that sort of stuff, which I'm not sure if I agree with. I think if you're getting paid to play a sport, then you're professional in one way or the other, and one way or the other, sorry. And yeah, I just think it's interesting what happened, and will be interesting to see what happens come when I think it'll be interesting to see what happens when the verdict is given down for that guy who was drink driving, and if the truth will ever come out, we don't know. But anyway, moving on, let's talk about the final round of pool play. Final round of pool play for the Rugby World Cup. We had the All Blacks versing Uruguay. That was on Friday, and I'll be honest, I didn't really watch too much of that. I just watched a couple of moments here and there. The final score was 73-0 to New Zealand, so nothing really to write home about. I didn't really expect too much else from the All Blacks, given it was Uruguay. And I hate saying that because I feel like I sound like I'm being mean or rude, but at the end of the day, Uruguay was always going to be a win for the All Blacks. So yeah, that's that on that. At halftime, the score was 26-0, which I thought might have been a little bit higher. I know that they took like a good 15-20 minutes to kind of get the feet moving or like get into the game, which I also found interesting considering it was against Uruguay. But yeah, I mean, a win's a win. Last game of pool play, and now they finished second on the table, which means they'll be versing Ireland next weekend in the quarter-finals, which we'll get into. The one game I did want to talk about, though, was the Ireland and Scotland game. Without sounding rude, I don't know why people were thinking Scotland were going to win this game. Like, I know that sounds bad, and I know that's, I don't know, I feel like that just sounds really bad, but without sounding rude, I don't know why people thought Scotland were going to win against Ireland. The final score for the Ireland and Scotland game was 36-14 to Ireland, and at half-time, the score was 26-0 to Ireland. I mean, the ball never really got anywhere near Ireland's try line. Scotland really didn't have too much ball in hand. I thought Ireland played really well. I think they were always going to play really well. I was talking to someone before this game and they said it was going to be a statement win from the Irish. Do I think it was a statement win from the Irish in this game? I don't think so, but it was a win's a win. They topped their table. What I find, so obviously the world ranking is still first and Scotland are fifth, which is interesting. I think maybe that's where people thought the game was going to be a bit better, but yeah, regardless, a win's a win for Ireland. Scotland are now out of the Rugby World Cup, and it will be Ireland and South Africa who make it out of Pool B. Moving on to the sporting event that I really do want to talk about, and that is the Bathurst 1000. So yes, the one sporting event from the weekend that I do really want to talk about, and that was probably my highlight of the weekend, was the Bathurst 1000. And right from the word go, from qualifying on Friday, it was a bit of a hectic Bathurst. The one word that I do want to use to describe the qualifying on Friday was hectic, and another word would be chaotic. The qualifying session on Friday was 40 minutes, and within the first 10 minutes, the qualifying session was red flagged, which means there were 2 crashes in qualifying, so under a red flag in qualifying, it means all the cars have to go back into pit lane. The first red flag was Will Brown, and the second red flag was Declan Fraser, who was a wild card for the weekend. Will Brown kind of did this weird crash at Forest Elbow on turn 2, and it looked like he had like some steering difficulties or steering issues, but I think no one really kind of got any word on what actually happened there. And then Declan Fraser had a pretty big one, and I don't think he got back out in that qualifying session. The top 10 shootout was fast. Oh my god, the top 10 shootout on Saturday was so fast, especially across the top of the hill. It was loose across the top of the hill. Oh my god, it was crazy to see how quick they were going and how sort of fluid the car was over the top of the hill. I don't think I've seen it be so fluid over the top of the hill, which was exciting. Brodie topped the 10 to get pole position. Brock Feeney also had an epic top 10 shootout. Yeah, Brodie was the quickest in the top 10, which gave him pole. Brock did an amazing top 10 shootout, and we're going to get into what happened with Brock, and it was just like devastating, and I feel so sorry for him, but his top 10 shootout was amazing, and he did really well, and was able to close out that second place on the front of the grid, which was really exciting. Moving on to the race on Sunday, so obviously Brodie was in pole position and Brock was in second, but it was the co-drivers. A lot of the co-drivers started on the grid on Sunday for the race. So it was Brodie Kostecki's co-driver David Russell, who started in pole position, and then Jamie Whincup, who was Brock Feeney's co-driver, started in second. And Jamie Whincup got a fantastic start and took the lead from the start, and got a really good gap on the rest of the field. Will Brown also had a good start, moving up 5 places on the first lap, and the first co-driver change was on lap 15, and that was for Nick Percat. With the start of the race was pretty quiet. You had some moving up and down the rankings and everything like that. Nothing really to write home about, but yeah, that first co-driver change was on lap 15, and I want to touch on something that I found really interesting, because it was either going to be drivers, in my opinion, and from what you kind of saw over this kind of 6-7 hours, was that it was either going to be a tyre strategy or a fuel strategy, which you're sort of just like, duh, Taylor, obviously. But I think it became clear that it was going to have to be maybe more of a fuel strategy, because you could get less laps on fuel than you could out of the tyres. And if you're someone like Shane Langersbergen, who's like a magician with the tyres, then it was always going to be a fuel strategy. The biggest question for this race, which I just touched on, was, is it going to be a tyre or fuel race? Roughly 30 laps on the tyres and 20 laps in the fuel kind of region was the differential, can I say that word? And then lap 18, the Triple Eight car driven by Craig Lowndes had to go into the garage where there was an issue with the car, something to do with the gear lever, I believe, and that was their kind of Bathurst over and out, which was super sad. Car 23 also went off the track in lap 18, but nothing really came of it, and that was Jonathan Webb. Majority of the cars had their first pit stop by around lap 25, and no one, from what I can remember, really changed co-drivers apart from that lap 15 with Nick Percat. The first safety car of the Bathurst 1000 happened on lap 28, and it was Matt Payne's co-driver who went off on turn 1. And racing commenced again on lap 30. SDG took the lead off Ben O'Keefe. That's a rugby referee. I think Dylan O'Keefe, I think his name was. After the restart, top 3 were Shane David Reynolds in the Penrite car, and then Brock Feeney also in the Red Bull car. Another safety car on lap 38. Big stuff up for the Red Bull cars. SDG got in first and changed with Stanaway. Brock had to wait, and there was also a double stack up in the pit for the 2 Erebus cars as well, with Will Brown and Kostecki. So the 2 kind of main teams, as in, well, not 2 named, but the 2 teams that were kind of leading most of the way were Red Bull and Erebus, and they both were having issues with double stacking in the pit lanes because of these safety cars, which I thought was interesting. I thought, maybe the strategy might have been a bit different, or they might have kind of planned for that, but obviously they were happy enough to double stack both their cars, which I thought was interesting. Lap 72, this is when I was really quite sad about this, but on lap 72, Cam Waters' car had a massive crash, and it was James Moffat who was driving. Got it all the way to the pit lane entry, and the car couldn't go any further, and it blocked pit lane entry, which obviously wasn't great news. And as it turns out, the Monster Energy car couldn't get back out, and Cam Waters and James Moffat were out of Bathurst for yet another year in a row, because last year they were unable to finish Bathurst as well, which is just devastating. I think with a race like Bathurst, it can be like the highest highs but also the lowest lows, so you just got to feel for those drivers. Coming into the last 60 laps of the race, the top 3 drivers were Shane Langersbergen in first, Brodie Kostecki in second, and Brock Feeney in third. Richie Stanaway, Shane Langersben's co-driver, drove so incredibly well. Obviously, there's always so much emphasis put on like the main driver in this race, but Richie just drove, I don't know how else to say it, that he drove so well, and I was so happy for him. I believe he's got actually a main seat next year in the Supercars Championship, which is really exciting, but he just drove so well. He had an incredible Bathurst, and I think that co-driver pairing of Shane and Richie just paid off in dividends, and we'll get into it, but yeah, they just had an epic Bathurst, which is so exciting. Lap 137 is where things started to go down. So Bathurst is 161 laps. So on lap 137, like, you're so close to the finish line. Like, you're so close. You've got maybe just under an hour left. So lap 137, Brock Feeney's gearbox failed and had to come into the garage from second position. And you could just see when he got in, the cameras were all focused on him and his eyes were tearing up, and it broke me in that moment. I felt so, it was just horrible to see. It was just horrible to see how devastated he was. He was still in the car. His hands were kind of covering his face, like where his helmet wasn't covering it. It was just like devastating to see. Car 99, Brodie's car, had some steering issues that didn't come back into the pit. Brock's car number 88, the Red Bull Import 88 car, was able to get back out and obviously wasn't going to finish for podium, but their kind of their idea was to get more points, which is what, like, points are super crucial, obviously, in any race, but for Bathurst especially. But they got the car back out, and then there was still something wrong with it, so it had to come back in, and I think it got out for like the last 5 laps of the race. So no podium for Brock, which was just devastating because he was doing so well. Like, he was, honestly, I really think that he could have taken it to Shane in those closing laps, because he was driving so well and he was kind of chipping away at the time difference between him and Brodie and him and Shane. So I think we were kind of robbed a little bit of what could have happened in that race as well. But when all was said and done, Shane van Gisbergen crossed the line in first to win the Bathurst 1000 for a back-to-back win, and it was just so exciting to see. I will say, though, he won. So the gap between him and Brodie, who was in second, was 23 seconds. The margin was 23 seconds between Shane and Brodie for first and second at Bathurst and on the podium, which I think is relatively unheard of. I can't remember the last time at Bathurst that there was a margin that was that big between first and second to win Bathurst. Like, it was kind of like an uneventful finish for all the Bathurst races that I've watched and all the kind of ones in kind of recent years. It's always been, the person who is in pole position is always under pressure. So it was like a super interesting end to the race, kind of non-eventful, but regardless, it was a Kiwi co-driver. I think it was the second ever Kiwi co-driver pairing to win Bathurst ever, which is super exciting. So yeah, super happy for Shane and Richie, and it's just, that's Bathurst 1000 over and out for another year, and we've got to wait another 365 days now until the next Bathurst. So I will be counting down those days on the calendar, you best believe. And yeah, I don't know, I think all in all, I mean, there were like 2 or 3 safety cars this year, and in all the other Bathurst races that I've watched, there's been at least 6 or 7, like, minimum. So it was like a rather non-eventful Bathurst, which I guess is good. Like, I'm not saying that we love safety cars, but I think it makes it more interesting and kind of puts people's strategies under pressure a little bit. But pretty non-eventful Bathurst. Shane got the win back to back, and then he's off to NASCAR at the end of the year. So we'll be sad to see him go, but I'm just so happy that he got the win. I really wanted him to get the win, so really happy for him and Richie. Right, moving on to some headlines from around the world. First headline from around the world: Simone Biles wins 20th World Championship gold medal as USA blitzes competition. For those of you who don't know, I am obsessed with gymnastics. Why? Because in my delusional head, I believe that I too could be a gymnast. I can't even do a cartwheel. I cannot even, actually that's a lie, I probably could do a cartwheel if I really wanted to. But a little bit of a sidetrack, I've been doing yoga for like this past maybe just under 6 months, and my goal is to be able to do and hold a handstand. I'm getting there very slowly, but these gymnasts can walk on their hands. let alone just do like a basic handstand, let alone do these flips and things and all this sort of stuff. And here's me thinking I too can also do that and fling my body around 2 bars and fly from one bar to the next. But you've got to believe in yourself, and that's what I truly believe. So anyway, let's get into this headline. Simone Biles won her 20th World Championship gold medal as the 26-year-old continued her impressive return from the 2-year hiatus away from gymnastics, playing a key role in a historic victory for the US in the women's team final. Biles' impressive floor routine ensured the US won its 7th consecutive world title in the women's team discipline at the World Artistic Gymnastics Championships in Antwerp, Belgium. Brazil finished second to earn the country's first ever World Championship medal in women's gymnastics, with France taking third. 7-time Olympic medalist Biles was joined by teammates Sky Blakely, Shalise Jones, Jocelyn Robertson and Leanne Wong in the team final. However, Robertson, who trains with Biles in Texas, experienced heartbreak in the walnuts when she suffered an ankle injury. Wong filled the void left by Robertson by taking part in the vault and floor, 2 apparatus the 20-year-old had originally not been expected to compete in. Biles recorded 14.8 in the vault, 14.466 on the bars, and 14.3 on the beam in the first 3 apparatus. The 26-year-old was the final member of the US team to compete in the floor section, knowing that a big performance would clinch another gold medal for herself and her teammates. Smiling throughout her routine, Biles oozed confidence as she performed her twists and turns with even barely putting a foot wrong, as the judges gave her a score of 15.166. The US team combined for a total score of 167.729 points, winning by a narrow margin of just 2.199 points. In a congratulatory message on Instagram, the social media platform USA Gymnastics wrote that US women's team was in a league of its own. Biles has now won 26 World Championship medals, 20 gold, 3 silver and 3 bronze. Simone Biles is without a doubt the greatest of all time in terms of gymnastics. She is just a one-of-a-kind athlete, once in a generation athlete, once in like many generational athletes. I think she is incredible. I love her so much. I think her story is amazing. I think the way she is able to I just think she's just amazing in general. And I do have this other article. It's like an opinion piece, and I really wanted to add it in here as well. And it's about so it says gymnast Simone Biles' most enduring move was standing up for herself. It makes no sense to stop a pinwheel from spinning and pull out a single coloured vein for examination just to see how it works. It makes even less sense to talk about Simone Biles' gymnastics in terms of her skill. That's there, yes, but it's the stick to the twirl. When Biles overcomes physics in the air, it's not a mere matter of technique. Something more phenomenal takes over in order for her to meet gravity with such dalliance, call it harmony. The legacy of the greatest gymnast who ever lived, male or female, and that's what she is after her comeback to win a 6th individual all-round championship at 26 on Friday, is that her will and her imagination are in perfect league with her body. That's what makes her soar, and let it be a lesson to everyone who thinks a young woman champion has to be driven to the point of fracture and self-doubt to become great. What a change in demeanour from Tokyo, where Biles couldn't mark herself in the air to make a safe landing. Her mind simply refused to cooperate with her limbs mid-competition. She was suffering from the tangle of pressures and anxiety, but no small part of it was the USA Gymnastics seemed to expect her to vault lightly past the years-long abuse of Team Dr. Larry Nassar and the Caroli coaching regime, and back onto the medal podium to look past the lack of accountability and lead a pack of younger gymnastics with a plastic, cooperative smile. Something in her rebelled, my mind and my body are simply not in sync, she said at the time. These days she doesn't complete an interview without proudly talking about her therapy and referencing self-care as the bedrock of her accomplishments, which now stand at 35 Olympic and World Championship medals and counting. I just think she's incredible. I mean, you guys probably don't care, to be honest, but I just think she truly is such an incredible athlete, and yeah, just what a woman and what an athlete, and I really hope they get to meet her one day. Anyway, moving on. Rugby World Cup. The All Blacks await diagnosis on Tyrell Lomax ahead of quarter-final. The All Blacks are still sweating on the knee injury to starting tight head prop Tyrell Lomax as they prepare to launch Rugby World Cup quarter-final week preparations from their base in Lyon. Scrum coach Greg Feek had no updates on the powerhouse prop when he spoke to media early Sunday on what was a day off for Ian Foster's squad. Lomax left the field with a suspected medial ligament strain early in the closing pool match against Uruguay, won 73-0 by the New Zealanders, and is in grave doubt for Sunday's quarterfinal at Stade de France. Is it Stade de France or Stade de France? Someone let me know. They were quoted saying, "We're just giving him a bit of time and we'll get together in the morning and reassess with medics and coaches and see how it is," said Feek. "We've got an extra few days up our sleeves. I think it's just annoying to get a little niggle or anything. He seemed in reasonable spirits, but we'll wait and see tomorrow." Head coach Ian Foster is expected to update media with the latest on Lomax at a scheduled session at 1 p.m. in Lyon on Sunday. But Feek did have some good news around loose head prop Ethan de Groot, who returns from the 2-match suspension after being red carded for a high hit late in the match against Namibia. "The last couple of weeks he's trained really well and he's had the opportunity to do some extras," said the scrum guru. He's looking in a lot better nick than he was 2.5 weeks ago, so hopefully he can put his hand up for selection. "We're really impressed how he's taken on board a lot of the work-ons World Rugby gave him around the tackle stuff and also just around the way the game is going." If Lomax is ruled out as expected, Nico Laulala is the likely tight head starter, with Fletcher Newell to provide backup off the bench. Newell went off with a minor knee aggravation late against Uruguay that has been cleared of any injury. Foster will choose between the well-performed Offatonga Thasi and de Groot as his loose head starter, with the latter a good chance to be eased back via the bench after his time off. Rookie Tamaiti Williams is the other left-sider in the squad. So yeah, I mean, injuries are just plaguing this World Cup left, right and centre, and I mean, there's really nothing else to say. I mean, hopefully Tyrell Lomax is able to play because I think he's a great player, but we'll see what happens. Moving on to stuff outside of rugby, Liam Lawson crashes out of Qatar Grand Prix sprint. Sorry, let me start that again. Liam Lawson... I cannot speak this morning. Liam Lawson crashes out of Qatar Grand Prix sprint as Max Verstappen seals Formula 1 title. Kiwi driver Liam Lawson crashed out of the Qatar Grand Prix sprint race on Sunday New Zealand time as Max Verstappen sealed a third successive Formula 1 title. Lawson, who qualified 18th for Monday's feature race, which will be his final drive for AlphaTauri before Daniel Ricciardo returns from injury, came unstuck on the opening lap after hitting the gravel on turn 2. Sergio Perez was another casualty in the 100km race, crashing out after being stuck by Esteban Ocon and being the only driver in the standings who could catch Verstappen. That secured his Red Bull teammate the title. Verstappen started third but was slow off the line and was in fifth after the first lap before fighting his way through the field to finish second behind McLaren rookie Oscar Piastri. Verstappen then parked up in the pit lane and stood atop his car with three fingers raised on his right hand before going to celebrate with his team. Clinching the championship in the sprint race didn't pack the emotional impact of his dramatic, controversial last lap overtake of Lewis Hamilton for the 2021 title, but still Verstappen thinks his relentlessly consistent 2023 season has been his greatest so far. I mean, I don't think that's debatable. I think he's had an epic season. Yeah, I think for those of you who don't know, to be fair, I kind of enjoy watching Drive to Survive, the Netflix series. I don't love watching Formula 1 as a sport. I think maybe because I feel so removed from it. I don't know. I'm not sure that's just me, but I just find it a lot easier to watch. Oh, people are going to come for me when I say that, but I find the Drive to Survive series a lot more interesting to watch than the actual race. I think maybe if I put time and effort into actually trying to watch Formula 1, then I'd probably enjoy it more, but I think I really enjoy watching Formula E and supercars more, but That's just neat. Last headline for this week is back on the Rugby World Cup. England sleepwalk into last 8 with Samoa escape. Owen Farrell's verdict was emphatic, in public at least, that was aimed at himself rather than England as a whole. The captain had been asked about the moment deep in the second half when his team was 17-11 adrift when he had lined off the straightforward penalty. With the shot clock ticking down on the big screen, Bernard Foley's costly dawdling against the All Blacks, knocking around somewhere in his memory, and the impetus entirely on England to get on with play. Inexplicably, Farrell was timed out. I was unaware of the clock. I obviously got lost a little, he said. It summed up an England performance that threatened their sleepwalk into a nightmare. That afternoon had begun greatly. And the narrative remained wrapped around him. As the Samoan anthem played, he stood to attention, his eyes fixed somewhere up around the stadium rafters. When God Save the King played, he belched it out with guts, and when the match started, he was everywhere. That made no sense, but anyway, the match, I believe the final score for that Samoa, actually, I can tell you, I'm not going to, the England and Samoa final score was 18-17 to England. England have been interesting throughout this tournament, but yeah, anyway, moving on. That's the headlines from around the world. Let's look ahead to this coming weekend and preview the Rugby World Cup quarter-finals. Take a deep breath, because I am nervous. We're now at the pointy end of this Rugby World Cup tournament, Rugby World Cup 2023, and tensions are high. That's all I'm going to say. But for quarter-final 1, on Sunday, we have Wales and Argentina, and then quarterfinal 2, which is the one I am most nervous for, obviously, is Ireland and New Zealand, and that game is being played at 8 o'clock New Zealand time. On Monday morning at 4 o'clock New Zealand time, we've got England and Fiji, and then quarterfinal 4, the final quarterfinal, at 8 o'clock New Zealand time, we've got France and South Africa. Just off the bat, the quarterfinal 1, Wales and Argentina, I think I'm going to go and back Wales for that one. I think Wales will probably win it. I think it might be a little... I think the scoreline... I'm going to say Wales are going to put at least 10 points on Argentina. That's where I'm going to leave it. Quarterfinal 2, Ireland and New Zealand. I've got to back New Zealand. I've got to back our boys in black. I think the scoreline will be very, very close. I think it will be like a matter of 2, 3, 4 points at the most. I think it will be very close. I think it will be very low scoring, but we'll see what happens. But I do want to back our boys in black, and I do think that they can win on Sunday. Quarterfinal 3, England and Fiji. I'm going to back Fiji in this one. Given that England, and it's not like too much of the same, but given that there was only 1 point in that England and Samoa game, I really do think Fiji can really give it to England. Yeah, I think Fiji will win. Again, I think it will be really close, and I think it will be relatively low scoring, but I do think Fiji can win that quarterfinal 3. And then moving on to the quarterfinal 4, France and South Africa. Oh, that's a tough one. That's a really tough one. I'm not... I really don't know. I really don't know who will win that one. Something in my mind is telling me South Africa might win, but also France... I just really don't know. I don't know who's going to win that quarterfinal 4. Actually, if you're listening to this right now, or watching this, let me know in the comments who you think is going to win that quarterfinal 4, because I'd love to hear what you guys think, but I really don't know who will win quarterfinal 4 out of France and South Africa. I think, yeah, it will just be a super interesting game. That will be a juicy game, I think. I really don't know who will win that one. Anyway, I'm going to stop trying to think who will win, because I've got no idea. But that is it for episode 7 of Toe the Line. I won't lie. I it's been an interesting few weeks for me, but we're getting there. But I've got some really exciting guest episodes coming up, so make sure you stick around for those. Thank you so much for listening today, guys. I really appreciate it. We're growing. The numbers are growing. I've got like a pretty big New Zealand and Australia audience, but I've also got people listening from Belgium and the United States and Ireland and England. So thank you so much for watching. I see all of you. I am so grateful for all of you, and we're only growing and going up from here. So thank you so much for listening. I will see you all again next week. I'll be in your ear holes again next week. And until then, I will see you then. Take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, be kind to one another, and I will see you next week. Bye.